Welcome to round 3 of the Topspeed Automotive Street Eliminator Championship at the huge FIM Main Event here at Santa Pod, England. With 4 days of action to come on what is going to be a very fast track, a lot of drivers are looking to push their cars to the absolute limit.
Yeah, so with the Bentley we've got running 3,000 old horsepower this weekend. I just can't wait to get out there and start using it.
We've been fighting some gremlins, lots of little bits and pieces, but fingers crossed we've got it sorted now, we just need to test it.
So there'll be 3 days of qualifying, then the all-important 26-mile cruise before race day when it all gets serious. And we're starting off with perfect weather conditions, cool and sunny. So that's Dave Murdoch in the near lane, fogging out the skies with his turboed 33 Willis, facing Nick Hale of Redneck Racing in the Mercedes. Davey a bit quick off the line with his US Automotive back car, but the red light doesn't matter in qualifying. Both cars disappearing into the burnout smoke, 8-0 and 10-0. Nice starting runs there. Returning to the class after a crash at the start of the season is Carl Goldsmith in the Mark II Golf against current points leader Matt Smith in the Nissan GTR. And Matt's on a flyer on this one, stopping the clocks with a 7.5 at 190 miles per hour. A huge personal best for him in the GTR and going straight in as number 1 qualifier. Flash of the Titans here, 2014 series winner Stu Williams in the orange Supra, and the man who's been living for this event for months, Martin Smith, in his new ride for 2016, the stunning Bentley Continental GT. Sounds to be misfiring on this run, but Stuart straight into the 7s and a good MPH as well. The third of our Team Extreme cars, Gary Gooding closest to us in the Supra, and that's Al Williamson over there in the Howlin' Hauler Pro-Charged Chevy pickup. And don't forget that these are all street legal. Looking very quick here. Yes, a massive personal best for Gary. He's been waiting ages for that run. 7.64 and an equally impressive 8.22 for Al. First outing this season for John Webster. John's company, Webster Race Engineering, built so many of our Street Eliminator cars, including his very own Mercury Comet, but looking to be wounded on the start line here. Well, the turbo small block Ford powered Comet has run down as low as 7.41, and in spite of the smoke it sounds strong on the run, 7.88 at 177 miles per hour. So after the first qualifier we have 4 cars already into the 7s and the promise of lots more exciting racing to come. Pushing down for Q2 then, maybe with boost maps changed to match track conditions. And another new car debuting this round, the beautiful twin-turbo Hemi Cuba of Mark Sheridan. A last look at tyre pressures and time to go.
Because we've got a much smaller engine than the other cars that we race against, we've got to push the engine harder, so it means that our cylinder pressures are higher, so it puts more of a demand on the components. So the trouble we've been having is basically the head's been lifted off the engine. So we've got a new setup now, and we've tried different things, and we'll just keep trying until we get it right. My body could really feel the extra G-force on my head. I was trying to pull my head off the back of the car, and literally I was like, whoa! So I knew it was a good run.
Really happy with the first couple of runs down to 8.2, the PB's an 8.1, so I'm not far off my PB. If I can just do a little bit of tweaking and getting it off the line, then I should hopefully this weekend do a 7.
What is the Comet actually like to drive?
It's a dream, yeah, the car's so easy to drive, yeah. I mean, because of the shape of it and how much power it makes and the size of the tyre, you've got to be on your guard a little bit. As we've seen in the past, it can get a little bit ignorant mid-track sometimes. Aerodynamically, it's not planted. We're relying on pure tyre adhesion really to get the thing out the track. So it can get a bit ignorant, but most of the time there's no input at all. Let the change brake go and have a shift, and away you go.
And don't forget that this is a mid 7-second, 190 mile per hour street legal car. John's up against the Redneck Racing Mercedes here, and another great run. Improvement for John and almost back into the 9s for Nick Hale. So, Stuart Williams and Mark Sheridan this time. And we're following Stuart through his pre-run sequence. The burnout heats up the tyres and puts down a layer of hot sticky rubber on the track for the tyres to grip on the launch. There's a lot of smoke to get rid of before Stuart can see where he's going. Final checks from the crew, and he's directed carefully towards the staging beams, making sure he's on the sticky rubber. Then creep forward till the pre-stage and full stage beams are lit. Well, it's only his second run, but Mark Sheridan is on a flyer here and getting into the 8s already. No improvement there for Stuart. Another Supra. This time it's Gary Gooding. Slightly bigger engine in this at 3.5 litres, but still small compared to the big V8s. Gary and Team Extreme have been deploying the car for several years now, and finally this weekend seem to be getting a handle on it. At the end of Q1, Gary was in second position, but then saw Stu Williams overtake him, so he'll be wanting to retake that second qualifier position. Oh, looking good. Up to the stripe then. 7.93, but not enough this time out. Still, the consistency is certainly getting there. Team very happy. Less than an hour later, and it's time to fill the charge coolers with ice all over again.
In our last run, we were 4,000ths off our PB on the ET, and our mile an hour is up by nearly 2.5 mile an hour on that PB from a year and a half ago. So all we need is a gnat to fly behind us or something, and we'll be all right.
Yeah, the car's performing really well, still in one piece, which is always good. Stuart Williams is still the fastest 2 judge in Europe, and we're just behind him by about 0.08 of a second. There's more in it, we're just sort of taking our time, a little bit at a time, and see how we get on.
And a couple of runs from Q5 now, starting with Stuart in the far lane and Nick Hale in the near lane. And that Nat helped Stu this time round, recording a personal best of 7.52 at 188. And apparently new tyres this weekend for Davey Murdoch.
The tyres seem quite good. I don't think they're any better, but they're just about the same. So we've just started getting a bit more power in and turning it up, and it's working. So a wee bit more boost, more map, a wee bit more fueling, different trends in the fuel table and the boost table, and it seems to be turning the corner now, and a wee tiny bit at a time.
So it's Davey in the left lane and Al Williamson in the right lane, and both cars putting in flyers here. Personal best all round with an 8.11 for Al and a best ever speed of 177 for Davey. On board with Al after the finish line, and the truck just doesn't want to stop, missing the return road and ending up in the field. So as the teams ready the cars for day 2, it's still Matt Smith in number 1 spot, with the Bentley having problems all day. In number 2 spot is Stuart Williams, but he also found problems overnight.
We have a log, and that log basically is the full data on the car. So I've sent that to my tuner who's in Dubai, who's been remotely tuning the car, and he picked up overnight that there was a problem with the engine coolant pressure. So we've had a look this morning, and lo and behold, we have lost a little bit of coolant. Now, it's relatively minor compared to the past, but it's still something that we're going to fully investigate before we have another run.
We started the test day on Thursday, and our first pass off a trailer went 7.8, I think, something like that, but we had a little bit of misfire all the way down the track. Long story short on that one is the misfires got progressively worse. We spent all day of qualifying yesterday trying to resolve it. I think we've now found it, so we'll be out again today, and we'll be testing and hope we start again.
Just a few runs to bring you from day 2, and that's Johnny Smith here with his electric powered flux capacitor. But we're starting off on board with Stuart Williams. Burnout complete, pull up to the line. And you'll spot that Stuart does not have to shift gear. He has a solenoid on his gear stick operated by RPM. 7.79 for Stuart, and it still looks like a good performance for Al, judging by his crew's reaction. So same launch from Al's perspective. Stuart off in front here, and Al obviously chooses to shift manually. And shortly after that run, we met Al walking down to the shower block.
Surely you're not going out for a shower now when you've got another race to go out to?
Yeah, unfortunately, after that last run, we done just our normal inspection. We noticed a little weep of water coming from one of the radiators weld. So our good mate and competitor John Webster says he'll take it back to his workshop tonight and weld it up.
Day 3 now, and one final session before the cruise. Matt Smith's GTR still holds the number 1 spot, but with Stuart gaining ground rapidly, he'll be looking to improve on that. So pulling to the line against Carl Goldsmith. A red light on the start, but that doesn't matter in qualifying. And he consolidates his number 1 spot with a quicker 7.45 to a 12.28 for Carl. Well, Team Extreme's Martin Smith never managed to improve on his earlier 8.0 with the Bentley, but teammate Gary Gooding put in a storming 7.52 run to take the number 2 spot back from Stuart Williams, who sat the round out. So last run of the day, and we're on board with both Al Williamson and Johnny Smith. And you won't find 2 more different machines racing against each other. Both been running personal bests this weekend. But Al's rolled the lights, so no time for him this time round. And he's not happy about that. So as Johnny slows down after his run, time to look at the final qualifying table, which will set the pairings for tomorrow's first round races. So with qualifying finished, it's time to prove just how streetable these cars are. The Red Arrows continue to entertain the crowds as we head out for the 26-mile cruise. Taming all that horsepower must be quite a job for our drivers.
When we're out on the cruise, I don't come much above tick over because it's just you can tell the power difference and it is difficult to drive on the street. But on the track it goes along quite nice. No, it's not just a big heavy pickup. It's got a fiberglass front end and it's a full tube chassis and it's a couple of alley panels on the back and it's probably a long way from being a heavy Chevy pickup.
So the cruise starts off driving the wrong way down the famous quarter mile here at Santa Pod. It gives our teams a chance to wave at the crowd and the crowds a chance to show their appreciation. The cars all gather at the gates and it's time to hit the road. We're going to be riding along with Al, who we heard from a couple of minutes ago, as well as getting the driver's eye view in the cab of Johnny Smith's electric-powered Enfield 8000. And I just can't stress this enough. These are road-legal cars, all taxed, tested, MOT'd and running with full street trim including treaded tyres, working headlights, windscreen wipers and a full exhaust system. So as we leave Santa Pod, we head onto Airfield Road. This was of course RAF Poddington during the Second World War and proudly welcomed the 92nd Bombardment Group from the USA with their B-17s. So why is the cruise so integral for the class? Well, there's the obvious part that the cars all have to be street legal in order to take part, but they're also incredibly powerful, finely tuned machines that'll be running and potentially standing in traffic for well over an hour. For most drag racing cars, this is a big no-no. The cars have to complete the cruise with no outside assistance. They are allowed to take crew with them to fix minor problems that might crop up, but if they overheat, break down, or for whatever reason cannot make it back through the gates of Santa Pod within a few short minutes of the lead car, then their weekend is done. All that qualifying is for nothing, and although their name will still appear on the ladder, they won't be able to take part in eliminations. So around 10 miles into the cruise, we head for the petrol station. As I said before, these are highly tuned machines that you'd expect to run on out-and-out race fuel. Not in the Topspeed Automotive Street Eliminator though. they have to run on forecourt available pump petrol, and just to prove it, the first of their stops is at the petrol station where they have to take on board fuel. This really is quite a spectacle to see. Cars that have been flying down the drag strip at anywhere between 100 and 200 miles an hour for the last few days now have to tootle up to the petrol pump alongside all the other shopping traffic and buy fuel. They all run enclosed foam-lined fuel cells for safety in the event of an accident, so it can be quite a squeeze getting the required amount of fuel to fit. For those of you wondering what the battery car does, well, Johnny just plugs into the mains for a few minutes to give the car a bit of boost. After the drivers have stocked up on fizzy drinks, crisps and ice cream, the cars then do something else to prove how streetable they are. They have to start up whilst the engine's still hot. Again, usually a no-no for drag race cars. So much so, in fact, that our next stop will be at the second hot start in around 8 miles' time. The cars all roll into a public car park with all the bank holiday weekend shoppers. They're probably not the comfiest rides in town and pretty warm inside, but these passenger seats are one of the hottest tickets around. Class Gem Ben on parking duty there. I have to say this again, this really is a spectacle. We turned every single head in that car park. Some cars fit better into the spaces than others. Johnny's certainly the most compact car in the class. Now it's time for our drivers to get as much cool air under the bonnets and relax for a few minutes after what's been a pretty action-packed last few days.
It was a late nighter here.
Yeah, I think it was about 2 in the morning by the time we finished getting it apart, and then we put it back together today. A few strip threads here or there, a few broken bolts here or there, but basically we've done a head retorque and it seemed good, so we'll see how it goes.
It does look ridiculous, you're absolutely right, and people are just laughing at it. It seems all right. It's hot, just because it's a hot day, and there's no ventilation at all. I had to bolt the windows shut last time because they started losing windows. So it's smooth, but with a passenger on board, we get a bit of chafing off the tyres because the clearances on the wheels and tyres are a little bit tight. Surprisingly good. I'm just learning to do more coasting because it coasts really well. So we accelerate downhills and then try and just coast up, and that gives us a bit cooler. And because this is the second time we've ever done the cruise, one problem we had last time is the ECU, the sort of control unit, can be liquid cooled, and we never bothered. But we realised what was happening is the batteries weren't getting too low, it was the control unit was thermally cutting out. So we've now added a windscreen washer pump and a windscreen washer vessel. We put some ice in it and run a tiny little radiator like a motorcycle oil cooler and just sort of pulse it every couple of minutes, and it seems to be okay. So maybe we've solved the problem.
Matt Smith, #1 qualifier, has plenty of reasons to smile.
Yeah, absolutely over the moon. It's been a bit of, again, another surreal weekend. We came here Thursday to do some testing because we changed the gearbox and put a smaller first gear in. And so we spent most of Thursday just practicing up to the 330, which was great, just trying to improve all the increments up to the 330. And I didn't expect the improvements we make to give me the end result on Thursday morning, which was fantastic.
A fantastic achievement indeed, Matt's being #1 qualifier right from Q1. So Ben takes the stopwatch round. The cars only have 2 minutes to fire their engines after he tells them to.
This weekend's been a massive learning curve because all of a sudden we're looking at 4 links, adjustments, we're looking at compression, we're looking at rebound, we're looking at tyre pressures, we're looking at how much boost in the line. It's just, it's not easy. I'm learning so much, and I didn't realise there was so much involved.
So as Matt and the rest of the cars make their way back, the last 6 miles to Santa Pod is looking good so far. Everyone fired their engines okay, so it's fingers crossed for the rest of the cruise. We already know John Webster won't be racing tomorrow, but you may have spotted Mark Sheridan hasn't been on the cruise either. Some teething problems on his car meant he didn't want to push it any further. I'm pretty sure he'll be going home with an ear-to-ear grin though, getting the Cuba down to an 8.2 on his first weekend with the class. So everyone did make it back from the cruise, so it's time for the class barbecue before getting race heads on for eliminations tomorrow. So it's day 4 of the FIM Main Event, and with the cruise done and dusted, it's time for the eliminations. The final qualifying list shows Team Extreme in number 1 and 2 positions, with Matt Smith and Gary Gooding respectively. But engine problems meant that John Webster and Mark Sheridan failed to make it out onto the cruise, so they're eliminated. And Johnny Smith's crewman has had to leave due to back problems, so no flux capacitor either. So there'll be quite a few gaps and bye runs on the ladder.
Fingers crossed, it could be a 7, but we'll try. If I can get off the line.
And no sign of Martin Smith in the Bentley.
We found a small water leak on the radiator this morning, just a slight split, and it was only idling in the pit, so mine's thought better to bring it down really. Just don't really want the car under load on the track, and water all over the back tyres could potentially end catastrophic, and being his birthday as well, we want to take the car home in one piece really, so yeah, but there's always next time.
So into the first round, and it's a planned bye for number 1 qualifier Matt Smith. Qualified with a 7.45, he doesn't need to do anything special here. But it looks like he's going for it. Oh yes! 7.47 certainly lets the rest of the field know he means business. Carl Goldsmith next, and he should have been racing the Bentley of Martin Smith, but with Martin not competing, he gets a welcome solo into the second round. Very different stance on track for this front-wheel drive machine. And he nets a time of 12.56. Number 7 qualifier Al Williamson next in the near lane against number 2 qualifier Gary Gooding. On paper there's about half a second between these two, but one missed shift or maybe overpowering the track on the launch could change all that. And it's even off the start. Oh, but the power of the Supra soon starts to show. Gary pulling away at 3/4 track to take the win with a 7.62 against a losing 8.76. Davey Murdoch next. He should have been racing Johnny Smith, so another easy run here. And again, not really taking it easy. 8.0 at 171 miles per hour. Nick Hale in the near lane with the Mercedes-Benz should have been racing John Webster, but John discovered engine damage before the cruise, so Nick will take the win for a place in the quarterfinals against Matt Smith. Final pair should have been Stuart Williams and Mark Sheridan, but Mark had fuel problems in his last run. In fact, it sprayed over his windscreen at the finish line, so he wisely decided to take the car back to the workshop to sort out the problem. But no problems for Stuart. 7.58 at 188 for a quarter-final spot against Carl Goldsmith.
Yeah, not bad. 7.58, that'll do for now. The track's pretty good, so it's difficult to know what to do. I'll figure it out when I get there.
Who have you got this round?
We're against Carl, who's pretty good on the lights and he's pretty consistent. And who knows? I mean, we'll just hopefully have a clean run.
And an interesting story on returning from the cruise.
I was following Stuart here, and we went through the gate, and the security guard waved Stuart through the to carry on through, and stepped in front of my car and proceeded to point me towards day parking, which I thought was highly amusing, as you can probably imagine. So yes, I politely told him that I'm in Street Eliminator, and he stepped out of the way. But yeah, I was laughing all the way back to the pits.
It just goes to show how stock looking it is, doesn't it?
Yes, that's one way of putting it.
So time for the quarterfinals, and with those byes out the way, we've got some great races to look forward to. Stuart Williams right lane and Carl Goldsmith in the left lane. This should be an easy one for Stuart, but he'll still be trying as he wants lane choice for the next round, and anything can happen in a drag race. Well, no messing here. Stewart away like a scalded cat, taking an easy win with another personal best, a 7:48 at 188, and an 11.9 stout run for Carl. Number 1 qualifier, Matt Smith in the right lane, Nick Hale in the left lane. Oh, and the GTR goes well out of shape there at the hit, but he should have this one covered. Pulling away at the top end to record a sedate for him, 8.62 to a losing 9.82.
Yeah, nice run for Nick as well.
Final pairs, Davey Murdoch against number 2 qualifier, Gary Gooding. Oh! It's a red light for Davey. He left too soon and is disqualified, so Gary gets the automatic win with a 7.90. Davey must be cursing himself for that one. Semi-finals then. This is Stuart Williams in the right lane and Matt Smith in the left lane. Just hundredths between these two. Reactions will be everything. But Stewart's asleep on the line, a 0.54 second reaction time against 0.14. That will cost him. And yes, Matt takes the win with a 7.48 against Stewart's quicker 7.46. Oh, and in the second semi, Gary on the bye elects just to break the beams and save the motor. So final time, it has been quite a rush for the teams to get the 2 cars checked out and ready for the final. Both race for Team Extreme, and there's less than a tenth in performance between these two now. Down comes the ice for the charge coolers, and it's time to race. So it's Gary in the right lane, Matt in the left, and again, start line reactions could decide this. Oh, it's even off the line, but Gary's pulling ahead at half track, and he's going to take his first event win, and the time at 7.66 at 180, with wounded Matt slowing at the end. So as the crew celebrate, what happened to Stuart in that semi?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it's just about doing a PB, and that'll do. I'll take that home quite happily. I could have had a much better reaction. It was a 0.5. The win margin, I think, was 0.3. So I could have, if I'd have cut a reasonable light, a 1.1 or 0.2, then I would have had him. But I still haven't had a chance to look at the car yet. But I think I made a bit of a fluster on the after the burnout and didn't take it out of burnout mode, which meant I only had 30% nitrous, which would explain why the reaction was slow. But it could have been human error, who knows yet. I haven't actually divulged what went on. It was an awesome run. It was a massive PB for us, 7.46. I'm very, very happy. 119, 60 foot as well. What a brilliant main event.
Then your runner-up, Matt Smith, and the winner at the top step of the podium there, Gary Gooding. Well done, guys.
No, for me personally, real frustrating weekend. We've been plagued with problems, misfires and water leaks and so on, but forget all of that. What an awesome weekend for the team. Number 1 and 2, couldn't have finished any better. I'm well pleased.
Well delighted with that. Wasn't expecting it, but we were practicing on the first half of the track and it all came together when we put a full run together. So.
And this car finally seems to be working now, and it's really made a great result for the team, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, definitely a massive team effort. We've all done really, really well together, and yeah, I'm real pleased that the team's done well, and yeah, the car's really come together.
As we take a look at these series points so far, it's Matt Smith still holding the top spot, but Gary Gooding has jumped up to number 2. So join us for round 4 at the SPRC Summer Nationals here at Santa Pod.